Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Magach 3, the new Tier 5 American premium tank. As you can probably see, this thing is very similar to the M60 and M48 tanks already in the tree, and from doing some speed tests that are going to come up in a few minutes, this is actually the worst out of all three of them. I know a lot of people from the dev blog would assume this tank is a lot faster and would take, the best parts of the M60 and the M48 respectively, but it doesn't. So, if you clicked on this video to find out if this is a tank you should be buying, I don't think it is. And I will explain why as the video goes on. But I don't think this tank, where it is at the moment, is really worth your money, because you're not going to have a reliable time grinding with it. And as the title says, I mean, comparing it to the other similar performing MBTs around the same BR, like the AMX-30, the Leopard 1 and the T-54, the Leopard and the AMX can rely on their speed and maneuverability. T-54 can rely somewhat on its armor, and especially its gun. And this thing kind of falls in the middle, where it has decent maneuverability, decent armor, and decent speed, but none of those are good enough to really rely on in most situations, so you need to play it. I think somebody, I can't remember who said it, but somebody summed it up quite well in that you need to play this tank like a coward. You can't go into the front lines and expect to just, brawl with everything and have a fun time with it, because it's just not reliable. It's not a vehicle that is going to constantly work. But the benefit you do have is that it does work on almost all maps exactly the same, so at least it's consistent, I guess. So, before anything else, I have this speed test that I set up with two of my friends, Blackfire and Greek. So all it is the M60, M48 and the Magach driving in a straight line, and we're just going to see which one is faster, basically. So as you can see, the M48 is pulling away rapidly and the M60 is quickly catching up to my Magach. And this is basically because the M60 uses a slightly different transmission and it has an extra gear. The Magach only has 4 and the M60 has 5. So we're just seeing the maneuverability here in the turn, and the Magach is a little bit better than the M60, but again, it's not really something that's really worth praising. It's not like a massive bonus, really. So I know this is a bit of a shoddy explanation. It was kind of difficult getting the timing right and everything, but as you can see, the speed advantage this thing has isn't really worth it either. I mean, the dev blog was quite misleading. As you can see, again, the M48 is slowly catching up. So this tank isn't too special. At least it's not as special as I think people thought it was. So it's a bit of a weird one. I don't have a super impressive game for you today, but it's, it shows what I think you should be doing with this vehicle if you have it. But before that, I will show you the lineup that I've been using for 7.7 America. So what I would recommend with the Magach 3 is the M103, which I think is probably just the better option anyway to go with in a 7.7 match. It's really fantastic as a heavy tank, really reliable gun, stable platform, it's all you really want, and a constantly good vehicle even in an up tier. SPA, there's no real other choice. You have to really go with the Duster until we get something that's a little bit less bad. Of course, the Magach 3. If you have it, the T114, I really like it. Fast mobile, you can pretty much destroy anything you meet as long as you get the first shot on. But if you don't have this, I would go with the Scorpion or the Ontos. I think they're both still really good options with great armament. And as well, I would go with the M48 over the M60, as the Magach performs arguably pretty much very, very similarly to the M60. So having something a little bit faster and with APHE is probably your better option. If you're aircraft, go with the Bearcat, definitely. You have 3 bomb drops, or 2 bomb drops, excuse me, or 4 rockets and a bomb drop. I'd rather go with the bomb drops. For your other plane, I go with the P-80 just because I think it's got a really stable platform, like firing platform for taking out other aircraft. You have rockets as well. You could go with the F-84G, the new one, but I don't think it's really that good. It loses so much speed when you're laden with all the rockets, and you are quite an easy target for SPA. So I would stick with something like this that's a bit more stable and a bit quicker. Right, onto the game. Right, the match today is 7.7 on Poland, the new Fields of Poland map. So what I really wanted to do on this variation was just drive right down to the south and intercept the Leopards and 906s that would obviously rush there and try and push the A point from the south in the cover of the forest. And You know, I think this highlights why this tank isn't really a great option. It's because you can't really do anything else with it. You need to play sneakily like this. Because if I went over to the A point, you know, I could probably land a few shots on some other tanks, but my armor wouldn't be able to stop any of them. So being out in the open just doesn't work. So the only option I have is to play like the Leopards and 906s, which can quickly flank to the bottom here and put some shots onto A, but I don't have the speed, so I can't ever do that first. I need to go where these other tanks are going and kind of vulture them when they're not looking. This tank just, you know, it doesn't have any noticeable advantages over any other tank. So I've seen some shots come down range here, so I know there's something here. It sounds like a 105, so I'm assuming, you know, it's going to be a Leopard. So I don't want to push out too close to their side of the map. I want to go down the line vertically, so I can hopefully come up behind him, as I don't want to drive right in front of his gun, so it would be a bit of a waste of the flank down here. So it's just sticking in between these forests and making sure to listen from where the gun is, see if I can hear his engine rev up and just try and surprise him. And he just comes out in front of this windmill here, and I am a bit surprised I didn't see him right there. At least I don't think I saw him. I must have been looking in a complete other direction. It makes me look quite silly watching this in hindsight like this. But anyway, I'm just trying to be cautious because I don't want to drive in front of him or do something silly, but I can see him get hit there. So he's not going to be paying attention to me whatsoever, and he has lost his breach and turret drives. Just a matter of shooting him into the side of the turret there and taking him out. So there's got to be more things around here, surely. So I just drive up and catch a glimpse of movement. That's a 906. We shoot at the same time, and even though I'm shooting with heat, doesn't hull break. He takes out my track there, and I'm hopefully going to try and survive the shot, which I do. Go underneath the turret and kill the crew members, and he misjudges his shot. As you can see there, the reload rates are quite similar. This has an Ace Crew A67 reload, which is pretty good, but it's exactly the same as the AMX-30 and the Leopard 1, so it's not really too special there. You can see a SU-100 out in the open, so I'm just trying to sneak that kill off while he's backing off. Misjudge my shot very poorly and bounce EFS off the roof. Not a good display today. And guesstimate my shot through this bush and do take him out there. So what I want to do here is push up to the edge of the forest where they're not really expecting me, and use the very good rangefinder to just snipe away targets that are pushing up to the A point. And that's all I've got to do in this match. I can't really go out in the open. So I'm just scanning around still because, you know, things come in threes. And there's an object behind me again. So I can use the turret traverse speed, which is pretty good, to just kind of guess roughly where he is. He knocks down the tree for me, I get his driver and fuel tank. Luckily he doesn't get a fire or anything, and I can go through the turret before he really, I think, works out what was happening. But again, that was quite a lucky engagement. I shouldn't really have survived that. As you can see as well, the hull brake on this thing isn't really super reliable. I mean, I think it's got the same rules as the Object 120, where you need to hit the breech, transmission, or the engine, which is a bit unfair in my opinion. I think they should all have really the same effects on all of them. So whatever was on the sniping hill's been taken out, so all I'm going to do is just be a bit cheeky really, sit on the edge of the forest and snipe things coming up. So you can see how quick the rangefinder is there. I can easily just, you know, less than a second find the exact range and just lob one of these shots on. Load Hesh just because, you know, I want an excuse to use it really, as the Kugel's trying to get me, but he has spotted me, so they do know I'm here. But do just, you know, burn him out like that. Switch back to the Heater Vest just because it's a little bit more reliable, I find, and push out to the edge of the forest so I can get a clearer view on what's coming out. Now, there's a T-34-100 there which knows roughly where I am, and I can get the range immediately, pull out from behind the bush where he's not really expecting me, and just guesstimate the range, get it pretty dead on, knock out the engine, and aim the next shot to go underneath the turret. And I think here he's trying to range find me, which is why he doesn't shoot, because, you know, he's only got one chance, and he does miss out on it there. And last thing is a little BTR that's trundling his way off at the back there. 1400 meters, just get the range, dead on, and another hull break, and that's, you know, another kill. So that's all that there really is to this match. We eventually cap the zone, and that's it. Really, there's not much else to say. So that was one of the best games that I had in the Magach, which, you know, isn't very good. You know, this wasn't really an impressive game. It's just sort of exploiting people who weren't looking for you. But that's all you can really do in this tank. You can't take initiative over anyone because you don't have anything to take initiative with. You know, you can't brawl with your armor, you can't use your speed, you can't really use the gun that reliably either. The Heat FS and the Sabo are just, you know, one-shotting things is, well, quite difficult. So I have a quick example after this, again, of why I don't think this vehicle is that good. And it's another game that I had in the M103. So basically, I'll show just the end of the match. This was a loss. I think I got about 4 kills and I capped 4 zones on a loss. And I played a little bit of the T114 at the end, but it wasn't really much. I only got like a couple of hundred RP with it. And as you can see from the results screen there, I got basically the same RP amount on a loss with a talisman on a tank in the premium, in the normal tree, excuse me. So this tank, you know, as a premium, I don't think is very good. And, you know, when I'm trying to do reviews like this, I think reviewing a standard mainline tank is different from reviewing a premium, because in the mainline you're reviewing a tank as a tank. For a premium, you're reviewing it as a product, and as a product it needs to fill different criteria. So I'm reviewing this more as a product than as a tank, I think, because in my opinion, and you know, it is just my opinion, it's not worth your money. It's the worst out of the 3 tanks that it's similar to in the normal tree, and even then, it's not really a great tank on its own because it doesn't have any obvious advantages over any of the other machines. You know, like I said before, the Leopard has maneuverability, the T-54 has arguable armor and a reliable one-shot cannon. You know, even the AMX, which has, you know, a subpar round but great mobility, at least it has something going for it that can take initiative on some maps. This can't. The only good thing you can do is sit at the back of the map and use the rangefinder to lob shots at people. All you can really do is control sight lines and take flanks. So, but the benefit of this vehicle, I think, actually saying that, is that its playstyle never changes. On urban maps, so Advanced to the Rhine or Berlin with the Leopard, you might struggle flanking because you're confined in like a square. But so flanking's a little bit difficult, but with this thing, you know, nothing changes. You can still control sight lines, you can drive around the edge of the map, you're probably going to run into things and, you know, be slow enough to, you know, shoot them before they shoot you, because they're going to be going a bit faster. But, so it's good at that. It's like a vulture. It's what I'd call a vulture. You know, you take advantage of people that aren't really expecting you in certain places. It's like playing a heavy tank on a flank. They're not expecting you. That's how I'd play this machine. But, you know, I don't think on its own, even not reviewing it as a product, that it's not a good vehicle. I mean, I've seen a lot of people say to me that, you know, it is a good vehicle and they enjoy it. But to me, you know, this might seem arrogant to some people, but I consider a good vehicle to be one that any average player can get a standard 3-to-1 kill-death ratio in it. So things like the Jumbo, the T20, the SA-50 Sherman, stuff like that. Things that are good, things that are reliable, that you can get a constant reward out of. This tank isn't. So, you know, I usually don't do this, but to prove this point, I haven't shown any pictures. I'm not going to show any pictures, rather, because I don't think it's fair. But out of all of the people playing the Magach, I looked at their stats for about 20 people. Only 2 of these people had positive kill-death ratios in this tank, so people are struggling with it. It's not a good machine. You know, so I don't think this is something I can recommend to the average player to grind the Abrams with. You're much better off taking something like the M103, or if you like the playstyle of this thing, the M60 or the M48 in the normal tree, and putting a talisman on those. You will have the exact same result, minus the lion reward. I would honestly go with the M103 over the M60. I think the gun's great, the armor's good. You will run into things that can't pen you, which, you know, I think is great. So that's what I'd go with. If you've watched this far and you're still considering buying it, go for the M103. If you're some way up the tree, talisman that. So this vehicle just isn't. It's not something that I think is good. It's not something that I can recommend to anyone, really. It's just, you know, you can do okay with it. You will get okay rewards, but you're probably going to have a bit of a frustrating time playing it. It's just not really that good. There's not really much more I can say about it apart from going into little specifics, like, you know, the cupola. People are saying, you know, great, it's got a smaller cupola, but the downside of that is that you don't have the 50 cal. I've had multiple instances where I've been shooting the 30 point blank at planes diving in at me, and I've only like diddled the engine. I haven't knocked the engine out or killed the pilot, it's just hassled the plane, it's not killed it. With the 50, you can really do that. But again, you know, people say the cupola's really weak. Sure, it's only about 31mm, but that means that it's not going to set off most APHE fuses, which, you know, was sort of a benefit. But with this turret, this actually has the M60 turret, or at least the same armor values as the M60 turret. Any APHE round that you're going to be seeing, like the Object 906, the T-54's gun, the Long 88 even, they can pen your turret anywhere as long as it's not like a really odd angle. So the cupola being small isn't really that much of a bonus anyway, apart from it having a slightly smaller silhouette. But on top of that, the gun comes out of the top of the cupola, like, so it doesn't really do that either, you know, because on the M60s it kind of comes out of the cupola, so the size is pretty much the same. It doesn't really have much of a speed advantage either, it's just lackluster. It has more drawbacks compared to other vehicles at 7.7 than benefits. There's nothing this tank has over other vehicles apart from maybe survivability at range. So that's how I'd play it. On most maps, like Eastern Europe, where you can sit at the back of the map, lob shots over a long range, using the rangefinder, do that. Use the rangefinder all the time. It's so quick, it's really, really good. So stick with that. Instinctively hit that rangefinder key because you're not going to miss. It does have that going for it. But then again, so does the Leopard and the AMX, so it's not really that much of a bonus compared to them anyway. But the one thing that could be in the pipeline for this vehicle is that in the files, at least, this tank has ERA and it has smoke launchers. And I think what might happen, and don't quote me on this whatsoever, but what I think could happen eventually, maybe quite a long time down the line, is that this thing might get its BR raised to 8.0 and Gaijin will give it the ERA. It's not going to help massively, but it's going to help a little bit. And I think that's probably, at least since it's actually on the tank, and since I know a lot of people aren't having a good time with it, there's probably going to be some people complaining that it's not really very good. And Gaijin are probably going to cater to people who've paid a lot of money for something. This vehicle is probably going to get a buff like that. And again, don't quote me, I could be completely wrong, but it does seem like that's a relatively logical option. And I think a lot of this tank's drawbacks, again, do come from the teams at the moment. There's a lot of people playing the Magach, and they're level 30. They're not really, they don't have lineups to support the tank. They're probably tier 3 in the actual tree, so they're not really contributing to the team. You know, I had a lot of losses playing this tank. It's been suffering, and I don't know if my rating of this tank is too much swayed on the teams being the way they are. So the way it stands, I'm going to give this tank a rating of 6 out of 10. I would give this one a 5 out of 10, but again, I think quite a lot of it is down to the teams. You know, I was swarmed quite a bit, so, you know, it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit tricky, but I wanted to get this review out because no one's really made a review on the Magach yet. So I wanted to, you know, get one out there if there were still people who were thinking of buying it. So thank you for sticking around this long. If you have, I really appreciate it. Review on the AMX should be coming very soon, and yeah, so stay tuned for that. Thank you very, very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.